this episode, the third episode of the 6 Million Mile Show. I am one of your hosts, Crackerbox Jimmy.
I am your other host, Trucker Toby. Today's episode, it's a hard road. It's a hard road for truckers, and it's a hard road for truckers' families. And today we're going to address some of the issues that drivers face on the road being away from their families, and some of the issues that families face with the driver being away, whether it be husband or wife, male, female, doesn't matter. We're going to address those issues from both sides of the fence because we have a special guest today, my wife, Summer Bogard.
Hello, Summer Bogard. How are you? Welcome, and thank you.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do that with us today. How long have you two been together?
We've been married. Matter of fact, tomorrow will be 6 months that we've been married.
Wow! Congratulations.
But we've been together off and on for longer than I care to remember.
Oh yeah, talking about this, it's a hard road. It really can be. Families have to be flexible. Everybody's got to be resilient. Everybody's got to understand, what the job is. The family needs to understand what the job is, and the driver needs to understand what the family's going through and being forced to deal with while they're not there. And how do the two of you work through that? Summer, you go first. How does this really affect you and your family and what you have to do while Toby's out on the road?
What I really try to do generally is every moment I take to take a picture, to send it to him, to keep him involved in everyday life, what's going on. Picture day was just the other day. I took a picture of our youngest daughter who's 6. And, I was able to show him what she looked like before picture day. Holidays, same thing. I video record a lot, picture take a lot. We talk on the phone a lot to try to keep him within the means of knowing what's going on every day.
Toby,
doctor's appointments, everything that I do alone.
Yeah, and that's a lot of stuff. It always is a lot of stuff. And Toby?
Well, it's interesting because, now we have the technology that we have, and she's able to do those things. But back years ago, we didn't have that technology. So literally, the person at home, like say, for example, the wife, handled everything. And then when the driver called, they got bombarded with, everything that was going on, hopefully all of it good, but, a lot of times it wasn't. And so they tried to handle everything together. And sometimes, families had calling schedules. They'd call 1 or 2 times a week, because back then we used calling cards a lot. But the other thing is that a lot of times there were 2 sets of rules. The set of rules that existed when mom was just mom and the kids, and then the set of rules that everybody tried to adapt to when dad, or for example, the dad as the driver, was home for that 4 days that he was home. And it really could throw a household into turmoil, man, because, technology's been a gift in the sense to us as drivers that, like she just said, she keeps me informed of everything that's going on. If my girls do something, wrong, I get to find out about it almost immediately. If they do something great, I find out about it almost immediately. It's been a boon as far as technology, but man, I know you remember. I know you remember the back in the day, and it's cool that I can say that now because I'm that driver. Back in the day, the payphones at the booths, or your personal favorite, the phone room in truck stops. You remember how crowded those things used to be?
Oh man, I remember so many times going into the phone room, and there would be a line. And for the guys that don't know what the phone room was, the phone room was literally a small room with 3 walls covered in just elbow to elbow payphone small booths. There was no privacy, and guys would be on the phone. They're talking to their dispatch. They're talking to their wives. They're talking with their family. And you've got 5 guys lined up behind you for every phone, and if So let's say something really important happened in your household, and it's going to take a few minutes. You've got somebody going behind you going, look, driver, I got to get a hold of my dispatch. Would you hurry up? So you've got the stress of being on the road, the stress of, I don't know what's going on at home. And usually when you had time to make those phone calls, you dump on each other real fast. Like, here's all the problems. It was almost never a, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Would you tell me about your day? It's no, the kids did this, and the washing machine flooded the laundry room again, and this happened and this happened. And so you come in, you've got the stress of being out on the road and driving, and then you come into the phone room and you get the stress from everything that's happening to your wife while you're out on the road. And like you're saying, now the modern technology, Summer, you're sending Toby pictures of the kids and videos of the kids, and all the different ways to stay in contact, that it was just a mutual misery party on the phone most of the time back then. And I know, Toby, you were talking about how, you get a different set of rules, when you're home and when you're out on the road. Summer, what can you talk a little bit about that? Like when dad comes home, pretend he's not here. So, dad comes home from being on the road, and I usually, the last thing I wanted to do was go anywhere or do anything or be in a car or go do any darn thing other than sit in my chair that's not going rung, 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 rung down the road.
Yeah.
It's really strange, man, because, I've been a driver almost 23 years, and throughout that 23-year time, I've had two things that have been prominently true for me. One, when I drive a car, I want it to be comfortable and luxurious, because these trucks, even today, they will beat you up, and they do not come standard with a hot tub.
Not yet.
And number two, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, I hear
and it is so, and this is nothing against Summer. It is so hard for the wife or the husband, depending on who's out on the road and who's at home, to understand that we run so much that when you get home, you just, ugh, you don't want to do anything. You don't want to go anywhere. Honey, we got to go to Walmart. No, you got to go to Walmart.
Yeah. I'm going to sit here and turn my brain off.
Right. And now the thing that Summer and I have in common is Summer's a delivery driver. So she's on the go all day too. So she kind of gets it. But in most cases, if you've got Susie Homemaker at the house and Dave the driver out there, when he gets home, she wants a break. Wants to go to her bridge club or her gardening club or whatever the case may be, or just get out of the house. But then you've got Dave driver over there, dad driver, going, he doesn't know his name. He's like,
Summer, what do you think?
Plus, he has no idea what's going on in the house because he's been gone.
Yeah. Go, Summer.
What's one thing with our house is, like he said, I am a delivery driver, so I'm out on the road all the time. So Saturdays, I really don't like to go anywhere either. So that works for us. But we have 3 young girls out of 10 kids altogether. We have, yeah.
Our reaction's typical.
I hope you're getting a lot of money per mile, Toby. Go ahead, Summer.
They're
not all at home.
No. We have 3 young ones, but they're in karate and gymnastics. So we are also, and we have a big help. And we have my daughter, one of our daughters, 20 years old. Her name's Kadrian. She's our nanny. So she is able to do a lot of that stuff. But on Saturdays when he's home, he does do one of the karates. Jaden, our youngest one, he does that karate. And so he is out of the house for 1 hour, and that's it. And I try to minimize how much we go, because I know he's tired, just like I'm tired, and I don't expect him to continue running, and I don't want to put him on that. Because after driving thousands of miles, the last thing you want to do is hop in a car and start going anywhere. And I understand that. So
Yep.
understanding his job and him understanding mine is where we can come together, is knowing what he does out there and supporting him.
Mhm.
And knowing when he gets home, he wants to sit and do nothing. He doesn't want to think. He doesn't want to drive.
You know, I'll tell you, when my oldest daughter, when I was over the road, broke her finger. Nothing major, you know, but she wanted to talk to dad, and there was no way to get a hold of me. And when I finally was able to, you know, talk to her, she was upset and everything. I mean, things have changed so much for us to a point where we actually have more options now. You know, the company I drive for example, I'm home on weekends. I run dedicated freight. I run 2,500 miles a week every week, 2,580 to be exact. I'm home on Fridays, either Friday morning or Friday night. I either leave Sunday morning or Sunday night. So I'm not over the road anymore, you know, and that weekly schedule helps out a lot. But
yeah,
I know you remember this. There were times, you know, back when I drove over the road, this 16 years of my career, I drove over the road. You're gone 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And if you get in I remember once I got into a good loop with Tractor Supply, I was gone 3 months. Because number one, I got stuck in the loop, so I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
Number two, the money, because of the miles, was awesome. When you're gone that long, man, and wow, when you're gone more than a few days, it can really wreak havoc on the family because a lot can happen.
Oh man, yeah, you're not kidding. Summer, have you been with Toby long enough to have experienced any of that long haul over the road stuff?
He's been gone a couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks, I think, at the max. And it is hard. It's harder on the girls than it is me, per se, because the girls really miss him being there. And the only time he really gets to talk to the girls is when they say goodnight. So he's not a part of the everyday, you know, life, and not being able to be there every day is really hard on them.
Yeah.
And so, and we have little Jaden, she counts down the days to when daddy comes home. And when we have to extend it, she goes even more crazy, and she gets stir crazy because she wants daddy there.
Yeah.
And I can understand that.
She asked me last night if I'd be home Friday morning or Friday night. I had to tell her Friday night. She wasn't happy.
No, that's
but I mean, they don't really know how good they've got. I remember her sister Michaela is 10. And when Michaela was her age and younger, I was over the road. I had to be gone a minimum of 21 days.
Wow.
A minimum of 21 days before I could even put in for home time.
Yeah. When you were out for that 21 days, how many days did they give you off?
3 or 4. Usually the way it works is usually the way it works is still yet, and it probably worked the same way back in the day when you were driving, is, you know, usually you're out 7 days, you earn 1 day at home, you know, and that's the way it's been most of my career for over the road companies. But I remember when Michaela was little and her mom would drop me off to go to leave out, Michaela would bawl. And believe it or not, so would I, because that, you know, it's hard, man, to leave the people that you love the most. And no, even though we got these technology things that can make so much happen, there's still nothing like being there.
Yeah. It's the physical presence, actually being there, you know, to be next to the person or in the same room with the person. Even if you're just sitting there doing nothing in your chair, you're doing nothing at home with the people, and you can hear the sounds and the rhythm of the house, which is really nice. Now, like when I was last company I drove over the road for, I was out 3 weeks at a time, and I'd get 3 or 4 days, and that seems to be pretty much industry standard. I asked some other people, you know, how they doing, what are they doing. One guy told me about a company that they're not doing the program anymore, but they'd have the drivers out for 2 weeks, and then they'd have a whole week home, and then out for 2 weeks and a whole week home. And the drivers loved being home, but hated the paycheck.
I was just gonna say, but I'll bet that hurt the paycheck a lot.
Yeah. That's that's a hard thing, and that's really the name of the game, is get as many miles as you possibly can every day. Just get out there and drive, because if you're not, if you're not out on the road, if you're not out on the road that amount of time, you're not making enough money to keep the house afloat. Now, you guys are fortunate that both of you are working.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
some of your job as a delivery driver, I'm sure that gives you an awful lot of insight into, what Toby's got to do, and Toby knows that you know this. Have you ever gone out on the road with him? Have you been in the truck out to see the world with him?
Not yet, where I'm hoping to soon, because I have to stay home for the kids.
Yeah.
We do have that are my daughter, the nanny, to help, but we just haven't been able to get me out there, and I would love to, because that's to be able to be in his world, to be able to see what he does. And me being a delivery driver and being out of the road, I do know that some of the headaches.
Yeah, it does help us work together, but we do live in a different world, man. We do, it, Jim. We live that in this different world. Our world is different than everybody else's.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're lucky too, because I know you probably know this, but the divorce rate for this industry is like right behind doctors and lawyers, third highest in the country at one time. I don't know where it ranks now, but I know at one time we had like the third highest divorce rate in the United States behind doctors and lawyers, because it's hard. I will never forget. I had a student one time. I was a trainer for many years of my career, and I had a student one time. His name was Harry. And I took him out to dinner and talked to him about why he was doing this and, make money. And I said to him, I said, look, man, I said, you got a wife and a newborn at the house, right? He says, yeah. I said, brother, you might want to rethink this. I said, because it's going to put a strain on her. And because of that, it's going to put a strain on you. And I said, I'm not telling you not to do this. I said, but I am telling you, if you have a family at home, that family unit needs to be like this, or one side of this equation is going to fail.
Yep.
And that's where we were able to, because I did meet him while he was on the road. So I knew, and while we were dating, the whole time he was driving. So I already was aware of how life would be like with him.
And you still married him.
Yep.
Good. You must be quite a guy, Toby. That's awesome. That is awesome.
No, it was the glare from the bald head blinded her. I polished it really good that day.
Yeah. So she wasn't seeing straight. I understand.
Right. Exactly.
Now, I took my wife out with me. We actually got married, and then while I was trucking cross country, I got married during a brief period of home time, and we slapped, and I got permission. We did all the paperwork, got permission for her to ride with me. And we put a sign on the back of the trailer, and zip tied it to the back of the trailer that said, just married. And I picked up in northern New York, and our delivery was down in the LA area. And so we drove all the way across the country with this just married sign on the back of the trailer. Met tons of people. Are still actually exchanging holiday cards with a couple people that we met out on the road that stopped and talked to us, and people honked at us, and we had a fantastic time. Did the whole truck stop honeymoon. Now you can't get more redneck than that. But we did this, had a fantastic trip, but it did a lot to help her understand what being on the road is actually like. And one of the first comments she had was she didn't realize that A, there's no bathrooms in these trucks, and that B, there's no bathrooms for the drivers to use. But that right there is a whole different episode. But
that's another another can of worms. We'll open another time.
Yeah. But talking about the difficulties. Oh, Toby, I lost you.
I used to tell people all the time, if they're a driver and they're romantically interested in someone, take them out on the road with you for 30 days. 30 days.
Yeah.
Will decide whether or not you guys can make it or break it as a couple. Because because we live in a space smaller than a prison cell. If you can, one of the funniest things I ever encountered was I used to team drive. I team drove for about 2.5 years. And a co-driver was a female, and we got into an argument one night, and she slammed the curtain. Now, if you have never seen anybody slam the curtain of a sleeper berth, it is the most hilarious thing you will ever see in your life. And what made it even worse is I'm trying, she slams it, I mean hard, and then I'm sitting up front driving, trying not to laugh, and she opened the Velcro and stuck her face and said, "Don't you dare laugh," and I absolutely lost it. She slammed the curtain. I'm just, ugh, and I'm like, okay. You've never seen that?
Yeah, that's a small space. Yeah, and you're right. If a couple can get along in that tiny little space, they're going to be okay, because that's a lot of communication and a lot of understanding and space giving in a very tiny area. That's difficult. But going backwards for a minute, we covered a couple of things. I just wanted to share some numbers with you. You were talking about the divorce rate, and it really depends on what study you want to look at and who's, what kind of poll they did. I found information that said there was for all truck drivers, including the guys that come home every day, the local drivers and over the road, the national divorce rate was close to 40%. That's high. That's high.
Yeah, that's high.
Yeah. And that's tragic. And that's a direct result of the industry. My wife was talking the other day about, we frequently talk about extractive industries that are pulling things out of society or out of the environment and not replacing them, and trucking being an extractive industry, because it's the companies, a lot of them say they care, but really you're pulling everything, is squeezing everything you can get out of these drivers until they're done, and then boop, gone. You have extracted that resource of a driver to move the freight, which has to move, but not enough thought is given to the stresses that the work creates on people. Like some of the other numbers, there was a survey that was done, and we can talk about these topics a little bit. There was a survey that was done and asked drivers about their mental health condition. And there was 28% of them reported chronic loneliness, that they just felt lonely all of the time. 27% of the drivers reported being depressed on a regular basis. 21% had chronic sleep issues. 14.5% reported heightened anxiety levels, and 13% reported other emotional difficulties. And that's the stuff that we would bring to that phone room that we talked about. And you're on the road. When I remember, the pre-cell phone days, you're going down the road, and I won't use the expletive that we used to use, but you'd think, you'd go along with the bumps in the road, going, "They're screwing me, they're screwing me, they're screwing me, they're screwing me." You just get stuck in this negative cycle of thinking that winds up affecting everything you're doing and affecting everything that you encounter when you're on the road. And without some good communication skills between home and driver, you're going to bring that stuff home and dump it all over everybody when you walk in that door.
Well, here's, a couple of points. Women that are married to truck drivers, back when I first started and when you were driving, had to be very independent women. They couldn't be codependent. They could be interdependent, but you could not be codependent. And you had to be very independent and know when to be independent and interdependent. Big difference between the two. But you had to be independent when he was away, because remember, this is a male-dominated industry, even still today. But back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even more so. Okay, so the average was male drivers. So the wife at home had to be very independent. The other thing I would say is that, you're right. you do walk home, you get home and you dump all that stuff. But I got a song for you. I know you love your music, Cracker Box.
Mm-hmm.
The song will hit home with you because it's exactly what we're talking about. It is "Giddy Up Go" by Red Sovine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember, he comes home and is just everything is gone. His wife has left the baby
Yeah.
and left, and then 25 years later, he runs into his son because his son nicknamed the truck, his new truck, Giddy Up Go, and he runs into his son 25 years later at a truck stop with Giddy Up Go on the back of the truck, and it's actually his kid, and they talk and whatever. But how many drivers have faced that, man? You think, it's and there are other industries that, have issues like that. Rodeo riders, bull riders, rodeo guys that run the circuit, but if there's anything, well, it was funny that you say that, because when you're in basic training, they have a cadence, and it goes, "Jody's got your girl and gone." Jody's the guy that lives down the street, and he comes over and he's blinking your girl while you're gone doing your thing. And that was actually the third point I was going to make. You made it for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look at that. Look how we work together like that, man. But in any industry where one member of the family is gone a lot, it creates an atmosphere that can be volatile, because I always tell Summer, what's the worst place you can be?
New Jersey.
In your head.
In your head.
In your head.
In your head. And out here, it's easy to get stuck in your head.
Yeah.
Back on the being interdependent and independent, that's one thing that I still struggle with every now and again when he comes home, because I'm so independent throughout the week when he's not here. But on the weekends, sometimes I have to realize that he is home, and I can't depend on him to be there and hold the girls and hug them and just be the dad. And sometimes I do tend to have a hard time being, working with him on the weekends, and, realizing, he's home, and let him be the father.
Toby, do you have anything on that?
You don't want to step on toes, but you want, like, for me, I'll use the dad side of it. You want to come home and you want to be daddy. You know what I mean? But it can be hard, man, because I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. They have a routine. My girls have a daily routine. So I do not want to interfere with that routine. They have a routine with Katie and with Summer, and this is what they do daily. School nights, 8:30, I get the phone call, "We're going to bed, Dad." And so when I'm home, like every once in a while I'm home on a holiday and it's a Monday, I'm off Monday, and the girls have school Tuesday. Well, I don't have to leave till Tuesday, so I stay home. Well, I have to learn to step back and let Mom and Katie do their thing to keep them on their routine, because I don't want to throw the routine off, because there's an energy, there's a flow, there's a rhythm to it all. And, we don't mean to, but we can very easily interrupt that by complete accident, by coming in there and sticking our big noses into things that we don't really know a whole lot about.
Yeah. Summer, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, it does get on Mondays, and when he is home, it can get frustrating to have him home, because we're not used to him being home. And so, and he tries to help, but sometimes he's helping too much. But then there's other times where the girls, they daddy him to death when he's home. So he doesn't get time to relax. And so it's nice to have him there on the weekends, but yes, it can tend to be a hiccup, because we have our own routine down to the T, and having him home throws the whole vibe of the house off. And it's like, we got to go, okay, let's slow it down. Let's redo this.
And I remember
nobody could see me sticking my tongue out at people.
I remember, when I first started going over the road and realizing that even when you're home, it's not a job that you get to put down. because you have to account for your hours that you're working. Like, if you've got, let's say I'm going to go help my friend legally, if you're doing something for money, you're supposed to add that hours into your logbook. I don't know anybody that ever did that, but you don't get to put the job down because you are constantly thinking about, okay, I'm home and I'm leaving again on Sunday night, and I have to be, in such and such town. I got to be out in Boston at 5 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. So that means I have to sleep on Sunday. I came home Friday night, and I'm there. I am dad on Saturday, but then I have to shift my sleep schedule around on Sunday, and everybody's got to be quiet so I can go out and do my job and not die. That can get pretty harsh. And
Yeah.
I am really impressed with the way the two of you have got kind of a good flow going, and you understand how each other works and what the other people need, and seem to really be able to make that work. That's really a good example for other drivers and other families. That's really good.
It's the flip side of this is, you go home, like you were saying, and after 3 or 4 days, you start to get cabin fever. You start to feel like a caged animal because you're not out there, because you're out there so much, or in my case, out here so much, that this is one of the reasons we call it a lifestyle, because for the most part, you spend the majority of your life in the cab of the truck.
Yeah.
And so you go home, and I remember if I'm off for a week, which has happened in the past, you go stir crazy because you're like, all right, I've been dad for 3 days. I got to go. And it's nothing against the family. It's just the mindset you have as a driver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and go ahead, Summer. Go ahead.
Well, the way we think of it too is where he's at right now, he's at home. Mm-hmm. He just visits the house.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Toby is home right now.
Yeah. Right.
My address is 241195 everywhere USA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wrote a poem about that years ago. I don't have it right in front of me. I wish I did.
Well, why not?
It was because it's over there on the bookshelf. It is a short poem about home being an address, and home is actually where I wake up every day, and it's different all the time. And home is just the address on my driver's license, and where I live is in Wyoming or Kansas or Ohio or Tennessee.
Or waking up and having to figure out where you are because you don't know at the time.
Yeah. Oh, that was an issue on paper logs, because running paper log, you could run a little harder and sleep a little less. And a number of times I woke up and flung the bunk curtains open because I couldn't remember, where was I? Was I going north? Was I going south? Where the heck am I, and what am I doing here? Yes.
Guilty. I don't know how many times I've woke up and had to get on the radio. What town is this? Where am I? Or look, oh, hey, wait, never mind. I went into the truck stop last night. Let me look at the receipt to see where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times that's happened.
Yeah.
Or especially if you didn't do your logbook the night before because you were too tired.
Mm-hmm.
And you were going to do it the next morning, and then you have to wake up and go,
where'd that go? Yeah.
All right, I'm at a pilot, or no, I'm in a restaurant. Where the hell am I? Where was I? And about the only time you could figure out which direction for sure was if you were parked in a pickle park, because you can only go one direction out of there.
Yeah. Yep.
I bet you haven't heard that term in a long time.
Pickle park. That's pickle park. No, that's been a while. So we talked a little bit earlier. I was quoting the statistics about the sleep issues and whatnot, and how hard that can be, and the stresses. We see things. One of the hardest things about, for me, being on the road was some of the stuff that you get to see, and that you don't have a choice but to look at this burning car. You don't have a choice but to look at this wreck, and you don't forget them, and they pop up at the weirdest times. I was a guest on another show, and the host asked me, so tell me a story from the road. Tell me something about what you've seen. And I had one. I knew that question was coming, and I had a story all set to go. And all of a sudden, the only thing I could see in my head was a friend of mine that got killed in an industrial auger. And you know, the when I started driving, a lot of the guys on the road were old Vietnam vets, and they went into trucking because they didn't have to talk to anybody. They could just be in their truck, in their head, and dealing with all the things that they saw, and not have to take that stress out onto other people.
The solitude. Yeah. I mean, a majority of drivers, even when I started, when I started driving back in 2001, a great majority of the drivers at that point were prior military, because it's the solitude. We don't have to deal with anybody. You know, we get, especially the Vietnam vets, like you were saying, they don't want to be around people. They want to be left alone. They want to deal with people on their terms. So that means if they go into the truck stop, they may or may not want to talk to nobody. So they may not sit at the horseshoe, or they may sit in a booth. It just depends on them. But you're right. I mean, a lot of those guys, they came into the industry because, well, number one, society wasn't really nice to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And number two, they wanted their solitude because they just didn't want to deal with people. You're 100% right. But that solitude can eventually wear you down up here and in here.
And, you know, back in the day, there was not a mindset of, hey, of me as a driver going, hey, you know, I'm having a hard time. I am not dealing with this well. And, you know, you go home and you are not the best person you could be when you get home. You know, I always make the joke, it's kind of a tragic joke, but so is trucking hard on your family? It's like, you know, ask my ex-wife. You know, for that matter, ask my other ex-wife. You know, it's it can be rough, but I just wanted to throw something in here.
Though.
Yeah.
Back, you know, before cellular phones and all that, and all the cell phones, if there was an accident, if a trucker was in an accident, how long would it take for the family to find out?
Hours.
Well, I can better that one. Years ago, company I drove for, shall remain nameless, had an OBCS, the onboard communication system. It was not Qualcomm. It was called the Highway Master. And if you've ever texted on a flip phone, then you know what texting on the Highway Master and entering all your load information. Well, the problem with the Highway Master is it was basically a car phone, but it only worked one way. And the driver that I knew, his father passed. Nobody, his wife called the company to let them know, asked the company to let him know. They never let him know.
Oh, man.
3 days after his father died, he called home. Because remember, back then, a lot of times we had phone call schedules because the kids had stuff to do. And so hey, dad calls on Wednesday night, dad calls on Sunday night, or whatever the case may be. And he called his house. It was on a Wednesday night. He called his house and found out, you know, his wife was in his frantic. Why haven't you come home? Why haven't you called? What's going on? Your dad died last weekend.
Oh, man.
And he was actually on his way to company headquarters at the time.
Wow.
And he got to company headquarters and walked into what most companies, well, what we used to call back in the old days, where dispatch was, and the planners were, we used to call it the war room. And he walked up to his driver manager, fleet manager, dispatcher, whatever nomenclature you want to use for him, and asked one question: why didn't you tell me my dad died? And his person said to him, well, I mean, he was already dead. We didn't think there was anything you could do about it. two things happened after he
How long
uttered
did it
those
take that
words.
guy to regain consciousness after he got punched
Two
in the
things,
head?
two things happened after that statement came out of his mouth. One of them was he was beat unconscious,
I
and
bet.
two, the driver was fired.
Mm-hmm. 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 But
But that's stuff that actually happened back then, because back then a lot of, not all companies, but a lot of companies were like, so what? We don't care.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Summer, to directly answer the question that you had, it would, let's say I broke down on the side of the road or had some kind of problem. I'm sitting on the side of I-40 out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, no cell phone, no satellite thing, but I had my CB. And Toby and I are going to talk about this at some point in a different episode. I had my CB, and guys would stop because they didn't have that electronic logbook mandating that you just put blinders on and go. Guys would stop and help you out, or stop and see if you're okay. And if you were all right and there was nothing they could do, you'd give them your dispatcher's phone number, you'd give them your family's phone number, and you could count on the fact that that guy or that woman would go up to the next truck stop and make a phone call your dispatcher for you and say, hey, Mr. Spencer in truck number blah blah is sitting out here on the side of I-40 at this mile marker and he needs a tow truck, or go home and, call home and tell them, hey, I'm having a problem and I'm going to be an extra day, pass that information on. There was a mutual support network. So, if there was an accident, there's somebody would always stop, and I know Toby and I are going to talk about the cell phone culture and the old CB culture. Yeah.
See, and what's nice about with him and I is we have an app that I track him, and we track each other in the.
I have a
house.
stalker.
And I'm able, if he's sitting too long, if he's sitting longer than I know his 10-hour break is, that, okay, what's going on? Is something going on? Do you need help? And that's really what helps me stay comfortable, because I know where he's at all times. So if there is a health issue or an accident, that I get notified right away.
Hang on, Toby, just a second. That I want to address something real quick about that. Having that app, there's a lot of guys out here on the road that don't have family, that don't have somebody at home. I know a guy that he lives in the truck. There is no home time because he's in the truck all the time. And if you don't have somebody to talk to, all these things that we're talking about build up and add to the stress and add to the lack of sleep and add to the anxiety and the depression. And there are resources, that's part of the old culture is, no, I'm fine. I'm a tough trucker. I can handle this. 988. There's a phone number like 911. You can dial 988 and instantly get connected to somebody that is trained, a trained counselor, somebody that will, if just listen to you, get you help if you need it, talk you down if you need it, but they will help you out and help you, hook you up with resources to teach you how to better deal with the stress, and really be there as an immediate thing. And that's really an important thing for drivers and everybody really to be aware of, that it's okay. This is a damned hard job. It's hard, and it's hard on everybody. And you're kind of being stupid if you're having a problem and you're not asking for help. It's all right. It's all right to do.
You bring that up, and I'm so glad that you brought that number out, because you're right. There's a lot of drivers out here that don't have anybody, and we've throughout my career, I've had some friends that are out here that committed suicide out here on the road, and it's a real thing. People don't think about us in terms about that, but I'm going to plug something here that we didn't plan on, but this came up, so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
If you go on Facebook and you look up Missing Truck Driver Network, it was started by a group of people that I'm very good friends with, my friend Kari Fisher and her husband. It's Missing Truck Driver Alert Network is the name of it. You can look it up on Facebook, and they have things that you can fill out, because I've pulled in the truck stops with cars, police cars around drivers, trucks, and the driver been in the truck, been dead 2-3 days.
Yeah. I've seen
You
that
know,
too.
so it's my friend Kari Fisher and her husband started the organization. It's called Missing Truck Driver Alert Network, and it's a resource that families can use to help maintain, kind of like Summer stalks me, you know, an awareness of where their driver spouse is, or boyfriend, or whatever it is, whether it be male or female, doesn't matter. So that's a resource out there. And drivers need to know, like the 988, need to know that there are resources out there to help us, cope and deal with this job. Because like you said, this is a damned hard job, man. It is not for everybody. And we deal, okay, Summer, Katie, the family at home deals with stresses from the home. We don't experience those stresses because we're out here, but we deal with stresses from the road. And sometimes they can be just as hard, if not worse. And the reverse on that is true too. Sometimes the stresses at home can be just as bad, if not worse, than what we're dealing with out here. And if both of us have a good day, we just don't need to talk.
And taking a look at the time, we're banging up hard against our limit here. Summer, do you have anything that you want to add before we wrap this up? Because the way this is going, I could talk to you guys about this stuff all afternoon. But that's not practical.
Nope.
Here she comes back. There you are. So I could talk about this all afternoon. So Summer, do you have anything you want to say to
Lost her again?
No, here she is. Okay, go.
Really quick before my daughter calls back. Our daughter calls back again. No, that's it. I love talking with you guys. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you, Summer. That was really nice to meet you. Nice to see how you and Toby cope with road life. That's great. And Toby, have you got anything that you want to add here?
You know what? This episode, the reason we do this show is because it means something to us. And so we don't talk about subjects that are just whatever. We talk about subjects that mean something to us, but not only to us, but that can mean something to the industry. So this episode's very special to me too. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do the research and find out the numbers. And because we complement each other. Somebody asked me the other day, what's going to make this podcast so successful? Why is it doing so good now? I said, because my co-host is cleverer than I am.
I don't know about that. But
But our skills contrast. Our skills complement each other well.
And it's one other thing, talking about how things used to be and the difficulties and the modern technology and whatnot. As the industry grows and moves forward, it's really important. You can't know where you're going if you don't understand where you've been. So we talk a lot about the old school truckers, and it's not just that was better. It's, that we did it right and you guys are doing it wrong. It's that if the drivers that are coming up, and they're eventually going to be the old school drivers, they need to know, people need to understand what we had to deal with so they can understand how to better go forward, how to make the industry better, how to make the job better, to know what we had and what we've lost, and what they have, what the new drivers have, and what they're gaining through technology and modernity. So, that's, for me, that's part of what this show makes it good. And our ability, you're still out on the road and you're still seeing it. And I'm just sitting here telling you all stories about crap.
But you know what, brother? Here's the thing, you said it. It's not that we're better or they're worse. It's that we're different. Our generations of drivers are different. But the cool part is our show is an effort to bring those two worlds together, so that combined we can make this industry better going forward for everybody, whether it be old school driver or new school driver or somebody in the middle. That's the goal for me. So I really like it.
Yeah, me too. Well, unless either of you have anything to add, I think we can wrap this up. Now, Summer, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us about this. This has been great. And Toby, thanks for stopping and running down your clock for a while on this. And just want to say hello and goodbye to everybody. I'm Crackerbox Jimmy.
And I am your other co-host, Trucker Toby. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I am 1010 on the side.
Bone shaker, rattle my head. You got a shake that's loud enough to wake the dead. I said, bone shaker, tell me the truth. Swear you're running on whiskey under 20 proof.